Welcome to our Ludicrous Future podcast, the show where we take a look at the future of technology and how it is shaping our world. There are lots of things going on in the world of space technology and electrification of our transportation systems and renewable energy, as well as amazing breakthroughs in science that we like to look at each week here on the show. With us today in studio, well, I'm Ben from Teslanomics, and we have Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut.
Yes, sir.
And live from Tejas, we have
our other
Joe Scott.
Our other guy, the other guy.
The other, yeah.
The third wheel.
Today you are, yeah.
That's right.
Normally you're kind of the host. I mean, normally this is number 2.
Normally, we don't have a norm yet.
We don't have a norm yet. What am I talking about? Yeah.
Where there is no
Joe's
standard
kind of
to make a deviation from yet.
Yeah.
Oh, such
maybe
data speak. Listen to that.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll actually get like a format that people are familiar with.
And it will convince you guys to relocate to a state that is really fun, but also taxes you to death, and where we can do it in person. How about that?
No, more fun.
Yeah. Tim's trying to convince me to move to Iowa. It's not going to happen.
We're getting 10 gig internet next year. Where are you at?
Okay. Well, so now that everyone's stopped listening and they've clicked off to something more interesting, let's take it away. So, Joe, do you have any stories for us that I think you shared some earlier? So maybe we can jump into one of those.
Oh, he's got a personal story. I really am excited to hear.
And that's what I'm hoping to hear.
Well, I got my car.
Woo!
What other story is there?
Hi.
We are now 3 Tesla driving fools.
Are we
3
kinda,
douchebags with a podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are now officially Silicon Valley. The show.
No tres comas, tres Teslas.
You got to say it with that accent, too.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, you've got one.
Yeah, but
I've got 2.
What's your life like in it?
I've got 2. No, it's been great. I picked it up on Friday. The delivery experience was pretty good. I had to wait like 20 minutes or so while they got it all detailed and everything. But yeah, I put a video together. I'm editing it right now. It'll come out hopefully later today, and I'm liking it a lot. I mean, I haven't got the Tesla wall charger yet. But I'm just plugging it into the 110 outlet, and I don't drive it that much. So it's been, I work from home. I plug it in when I'm home, and it's charged, Have you had any issues with it failing to charge at all? Like you get a warning, like it stopped charging or anything like that in the 110? No? Mm-mm. Nope.
Yeah, I had that happen with mine because it was, I think, just old wiring, or actually the mobile connector, the UMC they call it, had to be replaced because I had one of the older ones. And so I think there might have been some challenges there, but I think that was one thing that hopefully people don't.
Maybe an extension cord was at fault with some of that?
I didn't have an extension cord on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was plugged in. I even tried multiple plugs, and I would get alerts on my phone that was like charging interrupted, check charge cable or something like that. I either blamed it on my, 1950s built house without a ground, without ground electricity, or, just the cable itself. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of people's cases, they're probably surprised that they don't actually need to go to a supercharger or something to actually,
or even 220.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But Joe has been experiencing something that I have yet to experience a problem with, and that's your phone key has been giving you problems, right?
The deal is, first of all, I discovered that if you put the phone up to the B pillar, just like one of those key cards, or card keys, whatever, it unlocks the car, just like one of those card keys. And I have an Apple iPhone, right? And when I put it up there, the iWallet comes up, like you're paying.
Yeah, NFC.
Yeah,
NFC. So that's been working. And the funny thing is, I called yesterday. I called Tesla customer service, and her solution was not really a solution. It was like, well, if you open up the app before you go to your car, it should work. And I'm like, but it should work if I don't do that, right?
Fail. Here, people can't, but I'm holding up my key fob for my Model S, which works 100% of the time.
Yeah, I would rather have a key fob, frankly.
Yeah.
I, so far, have had literally, granted, I've only had the car for 2 weeks now. 100%. Every single time I walk up to it, I open it like it's unlocked and it's ready to go. Every time. We've come to find out it's probably not locking. No, I know it's locking because the mirror's full. The mirror's full.
That's really what it is. It's actually just not.
No. It's actually been 100% perfect every time. I've never had it not be ready when I'm there.
Wow.
Which is what it should be. So I feel like I'm like super excited about it and I love it. But I hear stories like this all the time where you guys have almost no luck with it.
Yeah, I mean it's rough. It's a bad design, I would say.
Is your phone an iPhone or an Android?
I have an iPhone 10.
I have an Android phone.
Oh, okay.
What do you do?
I mean, the thing that gets me is when I open up the app, it has this little spinning circle thing that says "waking up" for 15 seconds, and I don't know if that has something to do with it. I was wondering if it was like an setting but
I believe so. I believe so. And this gets in a little bit to a topic that I was talking about recently was phantom drain and how the Model 3 has more of an issue of like losing its charge while just sitting there than the Model S and Model X. And when I talked to Tesla about this a while ago, because I came to them with all this data I had on it, they basically said, yeah, the car never goes to sleep and they're working on a solution. But the challenge is if the car is truly asleep,
then it would take forever to
then it has to wake up in order for the key to work. And so there's kind of now they should be able to, as you're walking towards the car using location in your phone, like within a bubble, let's say when you get within a certain thing, in my mind, I would just wake up the car immediately. So that way, when you do get to it, it's ready to go. But apparently for you, that doesn't appear to be happening. So I believe you're correct in that like the car is not awake. And maybe that's a different software version than either of us are on. Yeah.
I'm on software it works version. I suggest
that's the one 2018 it works.
But what do you think? What do your friends and family think, Joe? I mean,
I haven't actually shown it off to any friends yet. Actually, I don't have many friends, and I don't get out of the house much.
Oh, see, I wasn't gonna go there, but I mean, I knew.
No, I'm meeting some buddies tomorrow, so I'll get some good first impressions. But my wife, it's funny. The very first thing she thought when she got in was the ceiling, the glass roof.
The roof.
That's the first thing she thought. I was like, "That's amazing!" And I really didn't think she would like it because she absolutely hates technology. Like, she says the word technology the way Sean Hannity says the word liberal. Like, it's just like this with utter disdain, you know? And I was like, here we are with a screen. She's going to just throw up as soon as she gets in the car. But like, she got in and she was like, this is really cool. And as we started driving around, of course I had to gun it and give her that shock. She was like,
the Tesla smile.
Don't do that. And then, as we started listening to music and stuff, she got really excited because she was like, I'm going to be a DJ on road trips. And this has a great sound system. She got really into it. So
the sound system is really great.
Yeah. I've been really surprised by that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I like the Slacker radio too much or whatever it is that they use. There's not a whole lot going
not
there.
A fan.
I'm used to using my phone for everything anyway. So
yeah.
And Tim, you were saying that their contract for Slacker is ending October 1st.
Supposedly, their 5-year contract ends on October 1st. Supposedly, like this is a rumor I heard, and people were starting to see pinging through like the data, and actually they're checking their own Wi-Fi use like network, seeing that the car was talking to Spotify. Little bits of data, but that could be really cool if they're getting ready
that would be really cool.
Yeah, and so we were talking about that on the way here, and one of the things, so in Europe, they've had Spotify in the Model S and Model X for a while now, and so there wouldn't be surprise.
Yeah, it's not like it's a hard thing to do.
Right. Well, I mean, there's probably a lot because you're not using like a Spotify user interface. You're using like your own user interface. Yeah. And so they have their APIs. So when you click a button on your interface, it needs to call their API and like execute a command, like skip the song or whatever. So there's some work that needs to be done. It's not just like a, change from here to here, but I am excited about that, but I actually personally am more interested in an app store that would allow people to install or configure, kind of like your phone has a search function and you can configure whatever the default search engine should be, right? I think it's one of those things where like I could see in the car, and based on how the car is built with the APIs and stuff, it would make a whole lot of sense that they would start opening it up to third-party applications like the Spotify or Pandora or whoever.
Yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Let other people do the work for you.
Yeah, and so essentially, because right now, yeah, exactly, you touch on it exactly. Like right now, for them to integrate with Slacker or switch to Pandora or whatever, they have to build those integrations using Pandora's API. Right, they have to actually do the work to say translate our software, our user interface into that. Well, when you open up your API, it goes the opposite way, where hey, look, we have APIs, and you want to integrate with us and get access to our customers or our users. You have to integrate with us. So you have to. The onus is on you, which obviously is more scalable, and they are incentivized to do so. Although it's funny when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like, let's say every Tesla owner in the world got on Spotify. That's actually like a fairly insignificant amount of people using Spotify to them. So it's like they'd probably do it just to do it, because of the cool factor being tied to Tesla. But like if you really sat down and looked at it, this might not be like. Let's just put some interns on this.
Way worse than like Windows Phone. Like there's 1,000 times more Windows Phone users probably than there would be Tesla owners at this point. Right.
Yeah, and backstory here, kind of a funny anecdote. Slacker Radio very early on had an issue where the car. So there was something going on where the car would ping their API and it would start playing music just in the car randomly. And so it'd be like midnight or something, and the car is like reaching out to get a software update or something like that, and it would activate and it would start playing music in the car. And because Slacker is based here in San Diego, so I have friends that work there. And it's funny, they said like when they got the Tesla contract, they saw all these spikes of usage like in the middle of the night. They're like, what the hell is going on? And then later they learned that it was like a bug in how that stuff integrates. So.
That's hilarious. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm hoping for an update to that as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
No, the idea of an app store, I've always thought that was one of the smartest things that Apple did, because that opened up the possibilities of what this device could do to so many more people. And like after a while, it became hardware driven as well. It's like they're like, oh, well, all these people are creating these apps that can do this. Well, let's make the hardware a little bit more like this. So it's like it kind of guided the direction of the device. And I think it's a good revenue stream for them too.
Huge.
If Tesla opened up an app store where people could buy apps and they got a percentage of that,
Well, yeah. I mean, Apple, it's like one of their biggest revenue streams. And the amazing thing is that like the way I think about it, the amount of work Tesla would have to do to open this up is trivial compared to the revenue that they would get. Right? Like making a new model car and building a new factory is like incredibly capital intensive. This is like just some developers churning away on some software, and from then on, just it's good, right? It'll just like open it up, and the floodgates are there. You need to like spin up
apps work and
Yeah, but you can automate all that stuff, right? And you build testing suites and approval processes. Like it's so. Yeah. So the amount of work it takes for them to actually do that is trivial compared to what it takes to like make a car, and all the existing fleet out there, all 200,000 plus vehicles would just instantly be customers. So I think there's a huge potential in that space. So I think they should totally do it.
Yeah. Sweet. But no, I'm happy. I'm thrilled.
After all the headaches and all the. Yeah. Now, did yours get stuck on a train at all?
No.
Did you hear about this?
I saw what you talked about, yeah.
Yeah, so I talked about this on the show. I don't know if you saw it, but so in Utah, there was a weird thing where something to do with the laws in Utah. And so just until very recently, you weren't able to actually buy a Tesla in Utah.
Right.
And Texas is one of the other states. I think there's only 4 states that's the case. And so one of the laws had something to do with like you could only have a certain number of Teslas you only had a certain number of space and cars you could physically have like in the state or something. So they had to like keep them in a train depot in order to like have it not count. And so really the problem was delivery though. Like it wasn't the fact that like they're not allowed to do this. It was just like you have to deliver the other ones that are already there, get those out of there so that these ones can come off the truck essentially. So I actually had a friend that was affected by that. And Elon responded to the tweet. I mean, that was a wild kind of thing.
So ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like why what? I mean, I know why, but like, how ridiculous is it that someone's trying to sell an American-made product to customers in the United States, and people are lobbying against that happening?
Yeah.
Making it more difficult. Like, no, you just need to make better products.
You're right. No doubt.
Like, people want this. Let them buy it. That's tax incentive for your state.
Yep.
Like, what are you thinking?
And the irony,
there's a lobbying effort behind it or something.
Oh,
well,
imagine that.
And the irony of the thing is that the political side that's arguing against this are also the ones that are supposed to be for the free market.
Right.
Which is the exact opposite of what this is.
Right.
Right? Like exactly what you said. Well, hey, if you want to win, you just got to be better. You got to compete on a level playing field. Right. But no,
I think that might
like,
be I think that is their argument, though, is that they're almost like undercutting the process that's in place right now. But then, because right now, obviously, you have to go to a car dealership. Mm-hmm. And now, if you're selling direct to consumer, you can undercut that, and skip it. But isn't that a good thing for us as consumers and for the manufacturer? Like, why don't we cut out the middleman? So why don't we think about that situation?
No doubt. It's a disruption in that model.
Yeah,
and
it's a huge disruption.
It's happening all over, right? Like Airbnb, Uber,
Cut out the middleman.
Like some of Tesla's like most valuable, interesting things they're doing are the business model itself, not necessarily the products that they're making, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, like everything else, there's nothing keeping the other automakers from doing the same thing if they want to. But of course, they've got this whole infrastructure set up, and they don't want to mess with that. They want to.
Well, and I'd argue that there probably is some sense to it, right? These things don't. Like they exist for a reason, and when you look at like how Tesla is struggling to deliver cars and handle financing and servicing vehicles and all these kind of things, it makes sense that there would be something like a dealer network that would support those vehicles. Like so, I don't know what kind of business model you'd call that, like an affiliate, a franchisee, right? Like if you think of this in like other terms, not cars, but like it's basically what it is, right? We go to a Toyota dealer, it's kind of like a franchise dealer of Toyotas, right? And they service them and all that. So then the manufacturer is like, great, I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that there's logic behind this because if you want to scale worldwide overnight,
you're biting off all of the stuff you can chew. Like you have to do it all.
Right. And so I get the model. Like I don't think that model is necessarily bad. I think that maybe there's some bad stuff that's come out of it. And over decades of it being in place, it's a lot of people that are really invested in it not changing. But yeah, like I think I could totally, and I would love to see Tesla open up like service centers, like third-party service centers and things like that.
Yeah,
it would be nice. I think it's a good move.
Well, and I think as far as like what Joe was saying, like make a better vehicle too. Like just do that. But there's always the problem. Like there's so much investment in R&D to an engine. An engine for a car manufacturer needs to last and be as capable for as many vehicles. There's so much work that goes into that, and then the tooling that requires to actually manufacture it and make a new chassis for this new line of vehicles. So disrupting that process is like them starting from scratch on so many things, and so it's not in their best interest to crap. Now we have to literally reinvent our own wheel that we already invested in and planned that lasting 10, 15 years of return on investment, and all of a sudden now we can't get that. Just like if you made a coal power plant 10 years ago, you expect that to pay off for 30, 40, 50 years. That's your investment. And if you don't get that back, you're going to lose money. So that's why you're concerned that, people are now starting to kind of shy away from coal a little bit and investing in new things. But I'm in the position of like, if you didn't see that trend coming, you deserve to lose your money. Yeah.
Well, consumer choice or preference can change on a dime, but building a factory doesn't work that way, right? So there's an inherent kind of conflict or rub there, friction. And I think like the only way a business can really proof against that is to have things that are more flexible, like how Tesla's designed their factory with all the robots that can literally be reprogrammed overnight to now make a different car. That's not as easy to do in other factory designs. So yeah, I think like that's really like if I'm a company making physical things that it's difficult for me to change. Like digital things, I can literally change overnight, no big deal, right? I could just write some code, deploy it, boom, I'm done. But physical things that take longer, like it would be really smart, I think, for them to start to realize like, wow, so I'm going to be able to be, I'm going to need to be nimble here. And so in order to do that, how I do my things, whatever it is, needs to also evolve.
Digital, basically, like a new,
like
a new way to,
multi-use things.
And Joe, you talk about, or you brought up the article in our chat about, Bob Lutz from GM. Run us through that story. Like, did you read the article? I assume you read it. Or at least you know the headline.
Yeah, no, I read it. I should have it up, I guess. But it's just another one of these, like you said, Bob Lutz pops up once a year and declares that Tesla's dead. I mean, it was from, I think, Market Watch, some website. And the headline said Tesla's headed to the graveyard, according to Bob Lutz. And
Elon retweeted it, which was funny.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that killed me about it was they had this quote that was, of course, bold in the article, and it was like, they have no technology advantage, they have no battery advantage, they have all this, and I was like, how can you even say that? Like, they don't have a battery advantage? Are you kidding me? They're the only car maker that makes their own batteries.
And has the biggest battery manufacturing facility in the world.
Yeah, and every other car company trying to make batteries is struggling, trying to make electric cars is struggling because they don't have good batteries.
Right.
Like, that's what it comes down to in electric cars is batteries and software. Those are the two key things, and no one does those better than Tesla. That's such a dumb, completely false argument.
Well, and, with somebody that used to work at a newspaper, I think the thing that pisses me off the most isn't that Bob Lutz said this. He can say whatever he wants. It's that they just print it with no fact checking, with no data behind it whatsoever. It's just homeboy said this, and it's big and bold in a headline, and people scroll past it in their social media feed, and there's just, it's not like this is stuff that they can't look up. A 5-second Google search, they can find that Tesla is the only car company actually making their own batteries, and they don't put anything like that in there, and it's like, not to go on too much of a rant, but it's like, I get so angry at the news media. We have to stop saying the media as if it's one thing. The media is fractured and splintered in a million different places, but the news media, especially online, seems to have just completely abdicated their responsibility for facts and data and information. They just kind of like, he said, she said, this guy says that person says that, now you guys all go fight about it. That's basically what it is now, and it's infuriating.
And I think even to your point there, that different, like someone like CNBC often is cited as having a very negative view on Tesla, right? And maybe that's true because maybe some of those top line articles are ones that do go through the editors, like the top, the kind of people in charge of that publication. However, there's probably 1,000 reporters that work for CNBC, and most of them have kind of carte blanche to publish on their own columns. Without really much, maybe a producer or somebody looks it over, but certainly not to the degree. So it's funny how, like even when you think within an organization that typically has one view, you can actually see other viewpoints, but maybe they don't actually bubble to the top as the headline stories because they weren't written by the main journalist or the main editors or whatever, right? I don't know how the news organizations work, but I've talked to people at CNBC who are completely different thinking than other people at CNBC. And so, even within an organization,
which you do want that. You do want a difference in opinion, especially in a news organization. It gets scary when everyone has the exact same opinion and looking at the world in the exact same lens, because then it turns into a different beast.
Or is like literally owned by somebody who imposes that on them, which is also
very scary. Yeah,
a challenge, which has like been a thing going on. But to the point, the broader picture I think that you're bringing up, Joe, is like they're in my eyes struggling to survive, right? Like they are drowning right now. The mainstream media, I was listening to a podcast yesterday talking about how the Wall Street Journal attacked PewDiePie, and when you look at the numbers, PewDiePie has like 100x amount of traffic to his videos than the Wall Street Journal. But because they're the Wall Street Journal, they feel like they're an institution and they're a part of this hierarchical view of the world and they belong up there and he's just like a lowly whatever. But when it comes down to it, in reality,
influence.
yeah, PewDiePie speaks and far more people care than the Wall Street Journal.
Which
you know?
is scary. Like, we're in this really interesting position. This is very kind of almost off topic of our own podcast already, but it is we're talking about the future.
We're talking about how media, technology is impacting media, essentially, which is influencing all of our
this is important stuff.
opinions.
It's given a voice to anyone, which can and is great. But it's also, it does not reward journalistic integrity.
Right.
You know, it rewards, what's that word? Like click and clickbait and then sensationalism. Thank you. I've been literally staring out the window for the past 5 minutes trying to think of the word sensationalism. And that's something that I felt, we talked about this a little bit in the car yesterday. I felt pretty guilty of that as a YouTuber, you know, where I felt like I started chasing that rabbit of topical, you know, clickbaity and sensationalistic articles. You know, basically Elon would tweet something and be like, I want to talk about it right away, and like get a video out. And it was at the you know, at the, what's that? Behest, or like, at the, I don't know, insert other word.
Struggling with words today.
I am. It's just, surfing.
We went surfing this morning, so, you know, the ocean kind of scrambled his noggin a little bit.
Scrambled my eggs. So honestly, like, you know, it is so important though for me to realize why people started watching my content in the first place wasn't because I was getting them stuff the fastest. It wasn't because I was getting out the most breaking news. They might want to hear my opinion on that, which is fine, and I can easily.
Those are simple.
I can throw up a little live stream and be like, hey, this just came out. I'd love to talk about this or something. That's different. But the videos that I produce, I want them to be a deep rundown. The stuff that takes time, and there's a reason it takes me a week to write a script for something. It's because I'm doing research and making sure that I'm as close as I can be to the facts and the background of the topic. You know, and I realized that's why people were watching me in the first place, and I potentially ostracized some of my audience by trying to kind of chase that like sensationalism. So,
you know, I think there is a little bit of and Joe, I mean, you like literally have a background in how to write a good headline and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where I think like there are ways to do it that keep it interesting, but also aren't like overtly fraudulent. I think there is this gray area of like, okay, you got me, that was clever, or, oh, that was satire and you're making a joke, but, you know, I just read that title and went straight to the comment section and just flame warred out, right?
Yeah, just like the thing that said, what was that one article? It was something like 95% of people don't read past the headline or something. Or there's some, I don't remember what it was. It was genius. Someone wrote this headline.
Yeah, and then the whole article was like some nonsense random thing.
To see how many people literally didn't read the article.
No, that's very.
And then so the comment section was like, "How dare you say that?" And it's like you literally proved our point in this comment.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. I did a video. The title was "Don't Buy a Tesla," and from the very get go, it was like, "Don't buy a Tesla if you hate clean oceans. Don't buy a Tesla if you hate or if you love going to the gas station. Don't buy a Tesla if you love traffic." If you know what I mean? So it was like from the very get-go, a joke, satire, you know, and then I actually went into how much it really costs to own one and how much money you should probably be making to afford a Tesla. And so it was kind of like trying to give like financial advice almost of like, hey, like, you know, because I get a lot of people commenting, hey, I'm in high school, how can I afford a Tesla? It's like, get out, go to college, get a job, like buy a house, like, come back in 10 years is how you buy a Tesla. You don't buy one right now. You don't, you know? So it's one of those things. But I got so much hate because it said, don't buy a Tesla. And it's like, like that just attacked people's identity essentially. Right.
I get comments all the time from people who clearly did not watch the video at all.
Yeah. Right.
And they basically call me an idiot and argue a point that I totally made in the video. And
it's
like, did you watch the video?
how that actually does impact a fellow human being, you know, because we do put a lot of thought into these videos and we work really hard to try to, you know, educate. That's the main purpose of my channel. Isn't supposed to be journalistic. It's supposed to be educational. You know, I want to teach people why I think rockets are awesome, you know, basically. And when I go through and do a really long breakdown on why this is the way things are, and then people are like, you forgot about this. It's like, dude, 8 minutes, 21 seconds. You obviously didn't watch. You know, like, I tell you why that doesn't work right there. Here's the proof in the pudding. And like, you just, that drives me nuts. Like, it's fine. Comments are great. Feedback's great. Corrections are great.
Yeah.
But if you literally didn't watch the video, that just is, I'm learning to like have thick enough skin that doesn't matter. But
I just don't understand. I barely comment on videos anyway. Yeah. So I'm pretty bad about that. I should probably be better about it. But like whenever I see that happening, I'm just like, why are you even commenting on this? If you didn't watch it, like, why are you even here?
Let's think about ourselves. Just like you said, I don't know how many times I've ever just like been like, that was a great video. Thank you so much. I've maybe done it 10 times.
Yeah.
But it's probably so much easier to be like, dude, what? You know, like you hear something, you're like, I have to tell them that they're wrong.
Well, that's the old XKCD comic. And if you guys remember that one, it's like a little comic strip. It's like, you know, husband and wife, and he's out there on his computer, and she's like, come to bed. He's like, hold on, honey, I'll be there in a minute. Someone on the internet is wrong.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Yeah. And this is going to change it.
Yes, exactly. Well, speaking of rockets and how awesome they are,
you're probably
someone just got to go see a rocket.
Yeah, I like seeing rockets. Yeah, I like seeing rockets a lot.
So tell us about the BFRS. Is this like the 10XRS? What did Apple just unveil? Is it similar?
Yeah, the 10X.
The XR, the XS.
Yeah,
whatever the hell.
Max.
I hate Apple. I'll just put that out there. So if you ever hear me talk bad about them, I am very, very biased.
Literally an iPhone on his desk.
Yeah, I use that as a for recording. That's it, and to control a drone with. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna put my drink on that.
So some people might be wondering why I'm in your office anyway in California here.
Well, other than it's awesome.
And I just wanted to come say hi while I was in the area.
I have pictures of Tesla on the wall for people that have never seen it before.
That's why I had to look at it. That's why I can't.
That's it. Yeah, you just want to see those in person. Yeah.
So the real story here is last Thursday, a week ago, I got an email saying, off the record, there's going to be Elon Musk is going to update everyone about their mission around the moon, the first paying customer to fly a mission around the moon, and we'll update you about the BFR. That's their big quotes. I'm doing air quotes, Falcon rocket. For those of you that haven't figured it out, it means something else, you know, realistically. And
to people from that speak a different language, it must be confusing as hell.
Yeah.
Because they're like, huh? Because even the word that we all think of is probably doesn't even make sense.
No, we use that word very. So here's the deal. I got this invite, and so of course I book a flight the next day, and I show up on Monday morning, and I brought my friend named Patrick Lawler, who's a phenomenal videographer, to come with me and cover it with me, and we go, and the crazy thing is I've been in that factory probably 7 or 8 times. I love the SpaceX headquarters is amazing. That's in Hawthorne, California. We talked about this on the last podcast. I was just out there a month ago for another media thing, and you
may as well move.
They had never let media in to record inside SpaceX, and all of a sudden they do it twice within a month of each other. And it's just like, what? Yeah. And I did find out they have a new lawyer that's handling the ITAR restrictions. So the actual, apparently is way more confident about like, no, you're fine. Yeah. Don't stress about these little things. So that's cool. So what they took us into though is they call it the tank land. It's where they manufacture the actual, these long 45 meter long tanks. Here we go. We can see some. So this is the BFS. That's the.
We're looking at his blog here, Joe. If you want to follow along.
The spaceship portion. But Tankland is where they actually manufacture the Falcon 9s. But this new ship they're working on, the BFR, is so big it won't even remote. It wouldn't fit out of the door. It would hit the ceiling basically in there in diameter. We're not talking about height. We're talking about diameter. So it is absolutely bonkers. Keep going down. Maybe we have a picture here.
Isn't that why they had to shrink it from 12 meters down to 9 meters? Because they literally couldn't fit it in the building?
Well, and even 9 meters, they can't fit in the building. So they are manufacturing it out on the port of Los Angeles now. They opened up they bought new land out there because they are going to take it right from the factory onto a barge, and they're going to have to ship them down through the Panama Canal. Here's me compared to just half of the rocket. I mean, look at that. That's crazy.
So you're standing in front of, and this like black and white diagram, which is an actual life-size diagram.
Yep.
Right.
1-to-1 scale.
Wow.
And you can tell even I'm like an inch shy of 6 foot, and
5'11" and 3/4.
I'm 5'11", and what's happening here? This picture, I'm not even up to the first engine.
Yeah.
When it's laying on its side, there's 7 engines on this thing.
So it's big, but like, how big is that compared to a Falcon 9?
So a Falcon 9 is 3.7 meters wide, which is 12 feet wide. This is 9 meters wide, which is what is
27?
Yeah, 27
and change.
Or 30.
30.
Yeah, 30 meters or 30 feet wide.
Big.
So it's much bigger.
Right.
And so they actually had us sitting back there. Here's a picture of us in Tankland, which I've never been before. They never let anyone back there, which was just awesome. I mean, I actually got to stay in there.
So Tankland is inside of the factory, and it's like kind of like wedged up against the wall.
Yep.
Next to, are these Falcon rockets?
Yep. So those are the Falcon 9s. Mm-hmm. And then over on the left is the poster that shows the scale size of the BFR, and it just dwarfs.
And if anyone watching now, Tim has a new video out on this. I imagine all this footage is in there. So
Yep. So it was awesome. The event was basically it was February of last year, so February 2017. Elon just offhandedly sent out a press release saying, "Hey, we signed someone to go around the moon." Like, someone bought a ticket to go around the moon. We're going to send them. They originally had planned to send them up in the Dragon capsule, which is what they're going to be flying astronauts to the International Space Station next year. And that's kind of been their goal forever. For like 7 years has been getting humans on the Dragon capsule. It's finally going to happen. So the original plan, though, was to put them on a Falcon Heavy, which has enough power to actually get a Dragon capsule out around the moon and come back. Just a little loop out there and come straight back. They don't go into orbit around the moon, but you just fly by it and come back. And so that was the original plan. And then apparently they are taking BFR so seriously, and they're not human rating the Falcon Heavy, which is another thing. That takes a whole different set of certifications. Falcon Heavy will not ever fly humans. So the BFR, they're looking at this as, we're just going to put them on a BFR. And that shows how seriously they're taking this timeline.
And now, is that the astronauts, NASA astronauts as well? Or
NASA astronauts will fly on the Dragon capsule on top of a Falcon 9.
Gotcha. Okay.
But not a Falcon Heavy ever.
And they're going to the space station.
Yep, just to the space station.
Gotcha.
That's about all the power the Falcon 9 really has for that heavy of a payload. Can't really get out past low Earth orbit.
Gotcha.
So here we are, and we're talking about this will be the biggest rocket ever made. It's taller than the Saturn V, more powerful than the Saturn V by a lot. More capable, fully reusable. The entire thing is reusable. I mean, it is.
And there's 2 stages?
Yep, just 2 stages.
The BFR and the BFS?
Yep. So, and some people kind of say BFB. So the BFR would be considered the whole thing. The entire system.
Okay.
The first stage, some people call the BFB, the Big Falcon Booster. And the upper stage is the Big Falcon Ship. And so you can think of the upper stage as a Dragon capsule where the people are connected to a second stage of a Falcon 9.
Got it.
They're integrated, So the point is that you reuse that whole thing anyway.
So the second stage will have its own booster.
Yep, its own engines.
And that will be 1, or will it be like
7?
7,
yep.
Whereas a Falcon 9
has 1 on the upper stage.
Yeah, the second stage just has the 1, and that's like when the ring pops off and it turns red. And,
Yep. So this is going to be. This is nuts. This is one of those things that's realistically in the space world. This has been, people have wanted to do this forever. There's nothing that's technically impossible. It's very, 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 very hard. Requires a huge investment, a huge amount of R&D, cool new materials. It has to be carbon fiber instead of aluminum now. It has to do all these things.
Something that big made out of carbon fiber.
It's going to be nuts.
Sounds cheap.
And so there's nothing, that's physically, they're not breaking any laws of physics. They're just doing something that pushing it.
Yeah.
They are down to the margins.
And you, and there was a Q&A section as well.
Oh, yeah.
Any good questions in there?
No.
I mean, I didn't. Joe, did you? I don't think anyone.
No, there was some guy with 2 different colored eyes that asked something about nozzle.
some Hawkeye in there.
Well, actually, when you asked that question, I was like, that's the one question I wanted to ask. And I don't think I fully understand the answer. Did you get what he was saying? Does it make sense to you?
So let's repeat what was the question. So you got to ask Elon Musk a question.
Well, let's set it up a little bit. So we had this Q&A section, and after about 5 times of people trying to milk the approximate cost, either of the development cost and or the Japanese billionaire who's buying this first ride, people just sitting there trying to get that number. And it's like, guys, he's not going to tell you. And
is it more than 5 billion? Is it less than 2?
It's like, guys, stop. There's literally, I think, 4 or 5 people asking that question.
I kind of want the guys that do bad lip readings to do one of these. Be like, not if it's 1 billion. Because he just kept sitting there listening to the translator, nodding the whole time. You can see some good.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, as soon as we saw the initial renderings, it was in a tweet on last Thursday where, we see this new BFS. All of a sudden it has fins. It has little wings in the front, little whisker wings, and it had 7 engines instead of, well, they had 7 last time, but it was 4 vacuum optimized engines and 3 sea level engines. And these are you can see in this picture here if you're looking online, but these are just the smaller engines, and smaller diameter like that means that they're optimized for sea level, or not necessarily optimized at sea level, but they are not necessarily vacuum optimized.
And when you say sea level, you're talking about like the ocean, like here on Earth, 1 G of gravity, 5 atmospheres or whatever.
1 atmosphere.
1 atmosphere, right.
Yep. 14.7 PSI is sea level air. And you want your engine to perform as best as it can in space, but there's a threshold where all of a sudden, when you make these nozzles too big, they won't work on the ground level because there's too much ambient pressure with the air that pushes it in, and it creates this thing called flow separation on the nozzles. And so they have to make them so they can function at takeoff. And oddly, this spacecraft the upper stage portion is going to spend most of its time in the vacuum of space. So using a sea level engine is not very smart, really. It's backwards. It's like, wait, this isn't efficient. This isn't as efficient. What are you guys doing? But so I asked him about that. So my question was, now I see you changed the number of engines. Can you talk a little bit more about, are they sea level? Are they vacuum? Can they function as an abort system? And to quote, he did say, he said, "Oh, you noticed that? That's a good thing to notice. Good eye."
But it just, I singular.
It's I singular. So now I'm self-conscious about which one because they're different colors. So that was something I wanted to know. And basically what he said was to streamline manufacturing, because it's so much easier if they just crank out 1 engine over and over and over. Because this thing's going to have 31 of those on the first stage, that's 38 engines per rocket. It's
the mass market engine.
Like make a bunch of little ones cheaply instead of one-off that you make 7 of ever that are crazy expensive or whatever, So this is taking that to another level where they're going to be using that same engine on the upper stage. And quite frankly, the reason is basically it's good enough. Like, it's good enough. It's not as efficient, but it's a compromise, And he said later they could add sea level ones, vacuum optimized engines up there because there's room for it. But then you lose out on things like there is unpressurized cargo at the bottom. You see this ring around those engines, and that's where you could actually put packs of cargo. So say you land on the moon or Mars, you can just literally lower some like solar panels, lower all these things from the trunk of this vehicle because there's room because they're using the smaller engines.
Yeah. I thought when that conversation was going on, I didn't understand, but when I first heard it, I was under the impression that like, because here we're at 14.7 PSI or whatever, that in order for the rocket or whatever you're sending to escape out of, the atmosphere, that it had to have like, the metal had to be a certain thickness, or there were constraints around the structural integrity of the vehicle. But then when you get to space, you're now in a vacuum. You don't have as many constraints, and so you could, like, if you were to build a rocket in space, you could build it in a much different way that maybe like on Earth wouldn't be possible, but would be more efficient for traveling.
Well, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what's true.
See, that's where I thought they were going with that. Like, oh, we're going to build it in space, and then that way we don't have to deal with like all this other nonsense that we have to deal with here because of the atmosphere.
Let me clarify and explain a little bit. Like, that's literally almost what spacecraft normally do. Spacecraft would not make it through the atmosphere. That's why they're inside those protective fairings. Right. They're really fragile. Or for instance, the lunar lander, was so fragile and frail, you could literally like poke your finger through parts of that vehicle because it was stripped down to only work in the vacuum of space and be as light as humanly possible.
Right.
So there's less mass to have to push around. And so, that's already a thing. But then when you're talking about engines being optimized for the vacuum of space, it's different.
Yeah.
They have all engines are basically just an explosion inside of a bottle,
Right.
and it comes out one end. Hopefully, that's the way it's designed, is to point out in one direction. Now the problem is, once you're in space, since there's no air pushing it in, squeezing it together, that pressure wants to go everywhere, and that's inefficient. You want it to go exactly
one direction,
pointed as opposite of where you're trying to go. That's as efficient as you can get. In order to do that, you'd have to have an infinitely long nozzle to point it in infinity. But then, of course, now you're carrying around a big, heavy nozzle. So there's this trade-off where eventually the nozzle's the right size and shape to optimize and point as much of that flow in the right direction.
Right.
But
it's kind of a sweet spot.
There's a sweet spot. that's what rocket science is there's always a compromise. It's like, we can make a bigger rocket, but now it does this worse.
Well, now we need more fuel, and the fuel adds more weight, and now we need more fuel.
So many compounding. Everything's a trade-off. It's crazy. And one of the new things, I think the last thing I need to talk about on this topic is they added these fins. They added what look like wings. And people are going, but Elon hates wings because wings don't work in space. But the thing is about that, they aren't really wings. And they don't provide lift. Like, this isn't going to enter the atmosphere like nose first.
I did very much think that this was like a space shuttle throwback kind of design. Like, it didn't make sense to me why, but is that for landing on the moon or something? Is that the
not
point?
The moon? The moon. Mars. The moon's the only place where it would need none of these control surfaces.
Oh, right.
So what's happening? They realize like it makes the most sense to use as much of the fuselage, the body of the vehicle, as possible to bleed off speed. That's a lot of surface area. It can catch as much basically drag and take energy out of the vehicle, and that's how it re-enters the atmosphere, is by having the atmosphere slow it down basically in exchange for heat. And the difference here is like the space shuttle could pitch to like 40 degrees. And that's all it could do. If it could come in broadside, like completely the bottom of the vehicle facing prograde or facing in towards like the direction of travel, it would bleed off a lot more speed. But that, they designed it exactly how it needed to be designed. There's a reason it came in at 40 degrees.
Yeah. But
what SpaceX is looking at is they're going, okay, what if we come in basically belly flopping?
Yeah.
Like a skydiver. Just come in like, and let all of the air, get caught by all of it. And the way you do that is you don't try to use like wings, because wings don't work. Wings work.
They'll catch and add lift.
Yeah, and you won't have any control over it. So basically, these aren't wings; these are flaps. Like, imagine it like this: like your arms behind you versus your arms at your side. They actuate like that, and that's how you can control your pitch, is by literally changing the amount of drag at the top or the bottom of the vehicle.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that. It's crazy.
Okay,
so why it's on those hinges, so they can kind of guide it through with that belly flop you were talking about.
Exactly. They're actuated. They aren't going to like rotate or roll like this. They're going to literally just like flip up and down. If you're watching the podcast, it might be worth, or listening to the podcast, it might be worth watching that on YouTube just so you can see my hand actions, because it's kind of hard to explain with audio only. But
but it is kind of like skydiving, like you just said. If you have your arms out like that, you can kind of guide how you press through the air and
exactly
what angle your body's facing and everything.
Exactly.
And so the BFR, this update, this design, this is intended for this mission around the moon.
For everything.
Right. I mean, I'm sure we'll have another update before it's done.
I'm sure.
There's no way that it'll be, this isn't like the done deal, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
But we're probably getting closer.
So the thing, I guess, as far as that goes, the thing that people need to remember, and why you can't just be critical that these are wings, and I'm saying this obviously, I would defend any company doing this, but this might sound like a SpaceX fanboy answer. This is not. It needs to have landing legs. Those landing legs, the further out they are, the better, because that gives you a more stable base, like a tripod, right? Now, it's almost like a flying squirrel, if you have things attaching, a skin attaching to that endpoint, it takes a very little extra mass, and having a leg mechanism that folds out like on the Falcon 9 might be heavier than if the Falcon 9 just had some fins like that anyway.
Yeah.
It won't ever do that. And people say all the time, why doesn't the Falcon 9, when they open, why don't they open the legs a little bit and create a break?
Some drag.
Some extra free drag, essentially. There's a lot of reasons why they don't do that, but that's basically what they are doing on this. It's just a completely different way of thinking about it.
So the BFR, so the things we know it's meant to do is take somebody around the moon and 8 other people, 8 other artists.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then land back on Earth eventually after that trip. Also go to Mars. Also land on the moon.
Yep.
So land on the moon, land on Mars, and take off from both of those places, which I would have to imagine from a energy standpoint is significantly less to take off from Mars or take off from the moon.
Yep.
And then also it's going to get me from San Diego to like Paris in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's going to do a thing like little rock. Now that aspect of it, the, what do they call that? Intercontinental.
Yeah. Like Earth. Yep. Point to point.
Yeah.
Earth,
Right. But it's like terrestrial space travel.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a way. And so that is, you will need both stages of that rocket. It will be this ginormous thing taking off and then flying around to wherever and then landing back and then being mounted back on another one and then taking off and going back the other way.
So you can think of the first stage of the BFR, especially if it's used like as a point to point. The first stage almost is like a catapult.
Yeah.
It's just hucking the second stage up, doing a lot of the work for it.
Yeah.
And then landing. And since it's not coming in at orbital velocity, it's not going to need to be refurbished nearly as much. So you want to offload as much work as you can to that.
Could you have a smaller one? A smaller first stage?
Potentially, but there's almost no point to that,
Really?
I mean, if you're
like, could you actually? So, like, would you have to refuel it 100% every time?
Yeah, and you might.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, you might as well. Like, you want to offload as much of the work onto the booster as you can.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's the crazy thing, and I talk about this in my video that I posted today, is they are starting from literally a blank canvas.
Yeah.
Just saying, like, it needs to. How can we almost reinvent the wheel in a sense,
right?
Without constraints of some heritage hardware, like with NASA building the SLS, they basically had to like say, hey, you have to reuse these boosters, you have to reuse the RS-25s from the space shuttle. We literally have some sitting around, like we literally have RS-25s sitting there that were on the space shuttle. We're going to make you reuse them basically because they're free.
Yeah,
but like that's not really how this stuff works. Now you have to design it, or they're leftovers. Now you have to design a vehicle based around that.
Yeah,
and this is
so it kind of forces you into a design that maybe wouldn't be optimal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the RS-25 actually is a phenomenal engine. Like literally, easily one of the best engines ever made. Period. So it's not.
And that's what the space shuttle used.
Yeah, and it's insanely efficient. Great thrust to weight ratio, reusable. All these cool things.
Now the space shuttle itself had its own boosters.
Yes, it had to. Otherwise, it wouldn't have left the pad.
Right. It would have just been peeled off. The other one would have just.
Yep. Those boosters were mostly there to provide enough thrust
to keep it on
to get it to the point where it could take care of itself.
Gotcha.
And then they detached, and then boop.
And then that one did have wings because when it was coming, it landed like an airplane. Albeit, what did they call it? There's a name for it.
Flying brick.
The flying brick, yeah, because it may appear that it was like a plane landing gracefully, but in reality, like it was falling incredibly fast and just hanging on for dear life. Right?
Yeah, and the BFR is going to make that look like a glider.
Yeah,
look like an ultralight paraglider or something. Because it's going to come in literally straight. That
diagram was weird, Joe. What did you think about that diagram or that animation of it? How it was landing? How the free fall and then changing and all that.
The wireframe animation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they kind of had that on the last announcement when they were showing how they were going to land on Mars. So, I mean, I've already kind of seen it before, but I think, Tim, you just explained it a little bit better than maybe Elon did, or even the animation. But the whole belly flop with the fins using, flaring out and kind of
that
like I think we all can picture that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's cool. It's unique. I've never seen anything like that. I talk about that again in in a video that I just released today, but I'm going to go really in depth on that actual re-entry system and how it works in a video that I'll hopefully have out, I don't know, when I get home.
Are you going to be indoor skydiving in this video as well?
I have footage of me indoor skydiving that I could pull from actually. So I might pop into that. I actually took a grid fin into an indoor skydiving facility once for I was the host of a show on Facebook Watch called Spacing Out.
Yep.
We only had 5 episodes, but so that'll be an episode that I'm going to work on when I get home. So what about you guys? Do you guys have any upcoming videos?
No, I'm done.
Can I just bring up a topic real quick? We talked about this announcement, but we didn't really talk about the whole Dear Moon project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Take it away,
that.
Well, okay, so I'm just kind of bringing this up for discussion because, like, I saw your little live stream right after, and you were saying that, like, you got really emotional, brought tears to your eyes just thinking about it. And I saw Cold Fusion did a video about it. Scott Manley did a video about it. And everybody's, like, super pumped and thinks it's an awesome idea. And honestly, I'm just kind of sitting here like, okay. I'm not really feeling it.
Okay, explain.
I can't explain. I don't know why. I've spent every day since they announced it trying to figure out why I'm not excited about this. Like I see how excited you are about it, and I'm like, I want to feel that way about it.
Right.
But and I will say it started some really interesting conversations about like who would be great to go up there, like what filmmaker could do this and that kind of thing, and what musician would be good to go up there.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is interesting. I think that itself has value that we're having that kind of conversation and thinking about it like that.
Do you want me to help frame it?
It's really bugging me that I'm not as excited about it as everybody else.
Want me to help you with that?
What's that?
Want me to help you?
No, I'd love to hear it. Yeah,
here we go.
Talk about it.
That's my opinion. As I need people to understand, I started Everyday Astronaut as an Instagrammer, doing photography, doing artwork that I would hope inspire people. But I fell so in love with the facts and this stuff that I went more to the educational route than the art route. But the art was the original go for me. Mm-hmm. The thing for me is that we have sent only engineers, only test pilots basically to the moon, and one scientist, and Alan Bean, who is an artist, who happened to be an artist that was an astronaut.
Yeah.
And the Apollo missions is the greatest achievement humans have ever done, and the most inspiring thing ever. Now imagine these people aren't there to share their experience; they were there to complete a mission, and they were walking on the moon, doing all these different things. This mission specifically think of this as finally the real first tourism. It's not going to do. There's nothing that this ship would be able to do on a free lunar return trajectory that's going to be any of scientific value.
Right.
We have tons of probes that have done everything you could possibly
cameras
do
and sensors
from that vantage point. So all that's left in this scheme, and besides landing on the moon and actually exploring on the ground,
playing soccer on the moon or something,
cool things like that. The best thing we could do right now, this is going to make Falcon Heavy and the Tesla Roadster look like a pizza party, like that was nothing as far as inspiration goes. This is going to make every human being connect to outer space in a way that has never happened before by a factor of 1,000, because they will have something to latch onto. They'll have music, they'll have art, they'll have all these literally different mediums to be able to be represented as a human in space that we just have not been able to represent before. And this to me is huge.
Take that, Joe.
I'm a cynical bastard, I guess. I don't know. Okay. I agree with everything you're saying. And I want to make it clear, I'm not against this whole idea. I think it's cool. I'll be following it. I look forward to seeing what they do and all that. We have plenty of time to wait.
People have stopped listening at this point and they're just hate commenting right now.
Yeah, I just lost my entire
I hate this Joe guy. I'm unsubscribing.
But I guess what I would love to see out of this, and maybe that's exactly what this is going to be, is like, every astronaut says when you get up into space and you look down at Earth, especially the Apollo astronauts, when they come around the other side of the moon, they see the Earth rise, it just reframes your entire perspective about humanity. And I think everybody needs that experience. And maybe having some artists up there that can kind of translate it and do it in a way that can kind of speak to us has that value. Maybe that's exactly what you're talking about. But for me, I think, and I don't know exactly how to word this, but I think it would be cool to have people of different nationalities, especially maybe nations that aren't getting along these days, people of different religions, of people of different ideologies, all kind of going up there and sharing that experience and bringing them together in a way that can kind of connect their tribes, so to speak,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Like, I would love to see something like that.
Yeah.
Or say somebody doing an interpretive dance based on what they saw going around the moon. Like, I have no interest in that personally. But at the same time, like I just said, like, I would love to see Terrence Malick go up and shoot something, interpret that experience through his, artistic vision and everything.
I agree with what you said there. I get that. And that's totally right in a sense. I would love, and hopefully this does pool people from totally different cultures, totally different everything. So we get a little sense of that, but I totally see what you're saying. It would be really cool if they just packed the thing full, 100 people.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is the first one.
Yeah.
Assuming this goes well.
Yeah.
Right.
There's plenty of room for future.
Well, and how many people fit on this thing?
Literally
normally?
100.
100, right.
There could be 100 people going to Mars.
We have like 5 or 6 years to become billionaires and enact what we want to do with it. So there you go.
Yeah.
I will say when
this podcast is a start right here.
I think we had like 1,000 views on this podcast.
We're
ready.
2 in. How much more you got to do? But no, when I was thinking about like this guy, what is his name yet?
Yusuka or Yusaka or something.
Yusaku Maezawa. We're gonna hear that name a lot more, I'm sure. But I was thinking like that would be an amazing experience. Just to be able to go out there with really interesting people with really cool brains and having that experience together. Like, I would want to be a part of that. And I hope that when they do this, they find a way to, I don't know, not live stream it, but share it with the world so that we could kind of feel like we're a part of that as well.
Well, they are going to.
Elon said it'll be streamed in VR.
I'm sure it will be. Yeah, I mean that to me would be cool.
Now, I'm just jealous is what will you actually be able to stream all of it? Because when you go around the moon, we're going to lose you at some point.
Hopefully by then
we'll have enough satellites to bounce it off.
Hopefully Starlink, which is
yes,
that's one of SpaceX's big infrastructures.
Wait.
That'll be that is very pinnacle to this actually being a really, really, really cool thing.
So if you guys are unfamiliar, Starlink is worldwide broadband, like gigabit speed internet. But do you know the tech specs? Do you know any about the tech behind it?
I'm more on the space side, less on the internet side.
So the only one thing I've really learned that I had never picked up from any of the stuff I saw online was like the actual antenna necessary to receive the signal. So people think, like, when you hear worldwide gigabit internet, you just assume your phone is going to connect to Starlink wherever you are in the world, and boom, you have it. But in reality, you still have to beam that signal down to Earth, and it's like a pizza box kind of size thing, like a receiver, and then you still have to broadcast that signal out. Maybe at that time, 5G internet will be, that band will be popular, and so we literally will have it. But it's not like someone asked Elon about integrating that with Tesla, with a car, and they're like, kind of have to fit like a pizza box antenna on it somewhere. Right. Like, I don't know. But like, that'd be cool.
Of course, think about how technology works. Yeah. The evolution. For now, it's pizza box size, just like original cell phones were a whole bag.
Yep.
Give it 10, 20 years and it'll be a receiver the size of a grain of sand,
Yeah, it'll just be embedded in your phone. That'll be pretty.
Embedded in your ear. Yeah.
I'm in on that. I'm tired of this twiddling thumb nonsense.
We're going to have carpal tunnel in our thumbs before we get the Neuralink.
Yeah, easily. So so Ben's done making videos on YouTube. Basically, he's
I'm done.
Baby.
I'm done. I'm just gonna. I want to start a channel on making cocktails and how my love of cocktails has evolved and how you can make them. That's a real idea I have, but we'll see. I don't know. If you guys like that, leave a comment. Maybe we'll make I was gonna make a book. I was called Cocktails for Dad, and it was like a way for dads that don't have time but still want to have a good drink. That isn't.
I think that's just the name of your YouTube channel.
There you go. Yeah, that's it. It'll just be me making cocktails and drinking all day long.
Beautiful. You have a beautiful kitchen.
Yeah, that's it. My wife will love
dads
this.
Could make for their kids.
That's a part of it. Yeah. I do that. Like legit. It was totally off topic, but fine. I'll make basically a margarita not like a mix I buy, but like actual limes and simple syrup and ice and, you know, cut up fruit. And I'll pour it for the kids and they'll love it. It's like a limeade. And then I'll pour it for the adults. And then you just throw a shot of tequila in there and you've got a margarita.
See,
It's totally doable. Yeah.
that should be the whole premise, is like drinks that can work okay, like virgin drinks.
Okay.
Like that could be a whole food is
There
so big on the
probably
internet.
is. There's probably already a dozen of
But
them
you
out
show
there.
how,
But
like,
I've
as a
not
dad,
done it.
you
Thank
could be like, here's the.
I was thinking it could be like, you know, the cocktail for after you're done mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
Like you go mow the lawn, you come in, you have a Tom Collins. You know, not the like one, you know, that you buy the mix from, but like the one you actually squeeze the stuff in.
Such a hipster.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm
Make
going.
virgin screwdrivers.
Orange juice.
Yeah, just literally orange
Serve
juice.
those every morning.
Yeah, that's great. Virgin Irish coffee. Just coffee.
But Joe, what about you? What videos do you have coming up?
Well, I'm kind of stepping on your toes, Tim. Actually, I'm doing one on the Dragon 2 next Monday. And then there's the video that I'm working on right now for the Model 3 delivery experience. It's more of like a vlog. People will probably hate it, but I'm hopefully
You
that'll
make it
come out
anyway.
today by the time people see this, I hope. But yeah, Monday I'm talking about the Crew Dragon.
I did want to do a comparison video of the new Bugatti EV to the Tesla Roadster and just see how they stack up. But
we went there last week. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's made out of Legos and it's absolute
It's
cabbage.
going to just appear in every single podcast.
Hey,
Yeah.
yes, I want to get. So we have a Lego store here, and you can buy a scale model of it, like a Bugatti Chiron, not the. Yeah, I think that's what they made it. Yeah. Anyways, maybe I'll do that. We'll put it in the background, and then Bugatti will sue us. we already got copyright strikes on the last video.
Yeah, for playing the. Yeah. And we probably got one now for showing the Dear Moon thing quick.
Oh man, I'm terrible. I should not be in charge of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways,
Well, we got to go surf some more.
yes, we do. We're gonna go have some tacos.
By the way, I do want to, for the record, the internet. I've never really surfed. I've tried surfing like in Florida with waves about the size of a toe, and in Peru with waves about the size of your shin. And this was the first time, like, big. There's waves out here in California. Newsflash, they're terrifying. They're like 3, 4, 5 feet tall. Like, and you're in the water, and it's like 10 times your head, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But what did I do?
What did you do?
Well, stood up on the first try.
Uh-huh.
Boom. Stood up on the second try. Boom. I'm like, all right, let's go out there, get the biggest one possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned into a dryer.
Yeah, you were in the washing machine after that.
The head's just dancing on the sand, you know.
Did you hit the ground?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a rag doll.
Legit washing machine in the ground there.
And I was like, I'm kind of scared. I'm done with this.
I will conquer Mother Nature. No, Mother Nature's conquering.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The ocean does not care about you, and and you are like a little tiny ant in its
It wants
way.
to murder you.
Yeah, it literally doesn't even know you're there.
You could
Yeah.
surf on Galveston Island and basically just get wrapped up in seaweed.
There
Awesome.
you go. So I think to close this, we didn't mention this last time. Be sure if you guys are listening to us on any podcast format, I think everyone always says leave reviews because that's the only way it's like really discovered. So if you could do us a favor, leave us a review. That would be amazing because I think that's the only way you really grow a podcast audience is good reviews. So please do that. That'd be great.
Yeah, and you can find us on all the podcasting places. There's like 12 of them.
Yeah.
So we can't name there. We don't have enough time to name them, unfortunately.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you can see the visuals on our YouTube channel as well, our Ludicrous Future. And then also you can find all of our individual YouTube channels. All of us are.
The easiest way is just go to ourludicrousfuture.com and we're linked out to everything, as well as we have an email list that we're doing. So we'll email these out to you guys. So if you don't even have to go find them, we will come to you. That's how much we care and how much we love you guys.
Boom. Nice and easy.
All right. Until next week, guys.
Bye-bye.